Two people, same neighborhood, similar incomes. One leases a new car every 3 years, talks about his investments at dinner parties, checks the market before his morning coffee. He has 2 brokerage apps on his phone and strong opinions about both of them. The other drives a 7-year-old sedan with a small dent above the rear wheel he keeps meaning to fix, packs lunch most days, has a 401k contribution set on automatic, and finds the whole thing genuinely, almost embarrassingly boring. One of them is quietly on track for retirement. It's probably not the one who looks like it. And if any part of that second description sounded familiar, stay, because this video is about you. Here's something most retirement planning conversations skip right past. The way retirement wealth actually gets built, the real mechanism, looks nothing like what we associate with financial success. No Rolex, no Tesla, no loud portfolio moves. It looks like slightly tight months, boring account screens, automatic transfers nobody at the dinner table knows about. And because of that, a lot of people who are genuinely doing the right things, people who are actually on track for retirement, spend years feeling like they're behind. Think about what most Americans actually have saved. Studies on retirement readiness suggest that the median American household has well under $100,000 set aside for retirement. And that's the middle. Half the country has less. Meanwhile, the number people say they need to retire comfortably keeps rising, somewhere north of $1 million for most households, depending on lifestyle and location. That gap between where most people are and where they think they need to be is real. But here's what nobody mentions. That gap runs in both directions. Some of you are already on the right side of it, quietly, without realizing it. Because being on track for retirement doesn't look like wealth. It looks like 3 specific behaviors. 3 signs most people find too ordinary to notice. This is what those 3 signs actually look like. Sign number 1. And I want to be honest with you about this one, because it doesn't feel like a sign of success. It feels like a sign of stress. Your savings rate causes mild, persistent discomfort. Not crushing financial hardship, not crisis, just a little tight. Always a little tight. The kind of tight where you can cover everything you need, but you're not particularly flush. Where a moderate, unexpected expense requires a small adjustment somewhere else. That feeling? Most people interpret it as evidence they're not earning enough, or not managing money well enough, or just behind. But here's what the data actually shows. The average American personal savings rate, the percentage of disposable income that actually gets kept, sits around 4%. That means for every dollar most people earn, 96 cents leaves. Only 4 cents stays. 4%. Now compare that to the savings behavior of households that actually end up in the top tier of retirement wealth. Research consistently shows those households maintain savings rates of 15%, 20%, sometimes higher, over many years. Not in one dramatic burst. Consistently, year after year. And here's the part the financial media doesn't spend much time on. Around 70% of people who eventually reach millionaire status in retirement did it on incomes under $100,000 a year. Not high earners, high savers. Those are completely different things. A physician earning $300,000 a year who spends $295,000 of it is not building retirement wealth. A teacher earning $70,000 who consistently saves 18% of it, quietly, automatically, without drama, is. The math is simple, and most people avoid running it. If you earn $80,000 and save 4%, that's $3,200 a year going to work for your future. If you earn $65,000 and save 18%, that's $11,700. After a decade of compounding, the $65,000 earner has built significantly more retirement savings than the $80,000 earner who spent 96 cents of every dollar. The number that matters isn't the size of your paycheck. It's the size of the gap between what comes in and what quietly stays. And that gap, when it's consistent, when it's automatic, when it runs in the background whether you feel good about it or not, that gap is your retirement wealth engine. The slight financial pressure you feel at a savings rate above 15%, that's not evidence you're doing something wrong. That's evidence you're doing something rare. A friend described his savings habit this way. Always a little tight, but never actually broke. That sentence should probably be printed somewhere. That is exactly what building retirement wealth feels like from the inside. Not abundance, not ease. A small, tolerable pressure that is, year after year, doing enormous work underneath the surface. Now, the second sign is even less exciting to talk about, and that's exactly why it works. Sign number 2, and this one is going to offend some people. Good. Your portfolio is boring. Not a little boring. Genuinely, almost embarrassingly boring. A few broad index funds, automatic contributions, maybe a Roth IRA you set up a few years ago and haven't done much with since. You rebalance once a year, if you remember. You don't have a thesis. You don't have a sector play. You don't follow specific companies. You barely check it. And according to the actual data, not opinion, not financial media narrative, actual performance data, you are almost certainly outperforming most people who are working significantly harder at this than you are. Here's why. Study after study on active versus passive investing shows the same result. Over any 10-year period, the vast majority of actively managed funds run by professional teams with enormous capital and analytical resources, fail to beat a simple low-cost index fund that just tracks the market. We're not talking about a slight underperformance. We're talking about the majority, consistently, across market conditions. And individual investors, people picking their own stocks, moving in and out of positions, following trends, historically do even worse than the professionals who are losing to the index. But the fee dimension is where this becomes almost mathematical. The average expense ratio for a low-cost index fund is around 0.05% to 0.10% per year. The average cost of an actively managed fund, before you add any advisory fee, is closer to 0.60% to 0.70%. Add a 1% advisory fee on top of that, and you're looking at total costs of 1.5% or more annually. That sounds small. It isn't small. Here's what it actually means over time. Two investors, same age, both start with $100,000. Both add $10,000 a year. Both earn the same 7% gross annual return. The only difference is cost. Investor 1 uses low-cost index funds. Total cost, about 0.10%. Investor 2 uses the default recommendation from a traditional advisor. Total cost, around 1.5%. After 30 years, Investor 1 has approximately $1.7 million. Investor 2 has approximately $1.2 million. The difference is $500,000. Not from bad timing, not from a market crash, from fees. The financial industry quietly harvested roughly 30% of what Investor 2's money could have earned. And Investor 2 probably checked their account more often, had more interesting things to say about the market at parties, felt more actively engaged with their finances, and ended up $500,000 poorer for the effort. If your retirement planning strategy is boring, 3 index funds, automatic contributions, annual rebalance, sleep like a baby, you are probably paying less, capturing more of the market's actual return, and building retirement wealth more efficiently than most people who are making this far more complicated. The boredom is not a failure of ambition. The boredom is the strategy. That's the part the finance industry can't package and sell, which is exactly why you never see it advertised. And the third sign, this is where a lot of people who look wealthy quietly run into trouble. Sign number 3, and this one is often overlooked because it doesn't show up clearly on a net worth statement. Your retirement wealth isn't dependent on any single asset. Not your house, not your 401k, not one investment. Instead, you've been quietly building multiple sources of financial strength. Here's a number worth thinking about. For many American households approaching retirement, home equity represents the largest portion of their net worth. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, Owning a home outright can be one of the most valuable financial accomplishments of a lifetime. The challenge is that a house and a retirement portfolio do very different jobs. A house gives you stability. Retirement assets give you flexibility. A house gives you a place to live. Retirement assets help provide income when the paychecks stop. And the households that tend to enter retirement with the most options available to them usually have both. A home they enjoy living in, and a growing pool of investable assets working alongside it. Let me make this practical. Imagine two people, both age 60. Person A owns a beautiful home worth $500,000 and has about $80,000 saved in retirement accounts. Person B owns a more modest home, but has built substantial retirement savings through a 401k, a Roth IRA, and a taxable investment account. On paper, their net worth may not look dramatically different, but retirement often feels different. Because person B has more assets specifically designed to generate retirement income, more flexibility, more options, more control over when and how money is used. And that's really the point. Retirement planning isn't about choosing between home ownership and investing. It's about making sure both parts of your financial life are growing together. The people quietly building retirement wealth often reach a stage where their investable assets become a meaningful part of their overall net worth. Not because they ignored their home, because they consistently funded the other side of the balance sheet too. Their 401k, their Roth IRA, their brokerage account, their low-cost index funds, year after year, quietly. And over time, that creates something incredibly valuable. Not just a higher net worth, but a retirement plan that doesn't rely on a single asset to do all the work. That's a subtle distinction, but it's one of the clearest signs that retirement wealth is becoming real, not just something that looks good on paper. Here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. People who are quietly on track for retirement, people who show all three of these signs, frequently report feeling behind. Not slightly behind, significantly behind. Like everyone else figured out a trick they missed. Like their approach is somehow naive or insufficient. And this feeling is almost always a comparison problem, not a financial problem. The modern economy is extraordinarily good at producing visible signals of consumption. A new car, a renovated kitchen, a European vacation on Instagram. And it is extraordinarily quiet about the signals of real wealth accumulation. The person with automatic index fund contributions has nothing to show at dinner. The person with the least Tesla has a very visible signal of financial activity. And because human brains process visible information better than invisible information, the person with the car feels wealthier. The person with the index funds feels ordinary, sometimes insufficient. But there's a second layer here. People who consistently build retirement wealth tend to have what you might call a high tolerance for invisible progress. They're comfortable with delayed feedback. They've accepted, usually through experience or through reading, that the machine runs whether they watch it or not. They don't need the account to confirm their identity week to week. They don't need the number to rise on a particular Tuesday to stay committed to the strategy. That emotional architecture is genuinely rare, and it is, quietly, one of the most valuable financial assets a person can have. Because here's the truth. Financial activity is not the same as financial progress. Active trading feels like engagement. Checking your portfolio daily feels like diligence. Moving money around based on market news feels like sophistication. Almost none of it is correlated with better long-term retirement outcomes. Most of it is correlated with worse ones. So if your retirement progress feels invisible, if it feels ordinary, quiet, almost boring, that's not a problem to solve. That's the whole point. 3 specific things you can check right now, not generic advice. Specific to everything we've just covered. First, calculate your actual all-in savings rate, not just your 401k deferral percentage. All savings, all accounts. Total amount saved divided by gross income. If it's below 15%, you know where the work is. If it's above 15%, You are doing something that a majority of American households have never done consistently in their lives. That number is your most important financial vital sign right now. Write it down. Track it once a year. Second, audit your total investment fee load. Pull every account. Add up every expense ratio and any advisory fee. If your all-in cost exceeds 0.5% annually, you are giving away compounding for services that the data suggests almost never justify the cost. The research is consistent on this. Paying 1% instead of 0.1% in fees over 30 years can cost you a significant percentage of your ending wealth on a meaningful portfolio. That's recoverable. Moving to low-cost index funds is not complicated. It takes an afternoon. Third, look at the ratio of investable assets to home equity and your net worth. If home equity represents more than 60% of everything you have, your net worth is not working as hard for your retirement as it looks like it is. You don't need to sell the house. You need to accelerate the building of assets on the other side of the ledger. Taxable brokerage accounts, maximized retirement accounts, Roth conversions if you're eligible. Grow the investable side faster than the house appreciates, and over a decade, your composition shifts toward the profile of someone who is genuinely retirement ready. This is general educational information, not personal financial advice. Your situation is different from everyone else's, but these three checks, savings rate, fee load, net worth composition, are the right questions to be asking. The people who retire quietly, comfortably, and on their own terms almost never have a dramatic story to tell. They didn't find the perfect stock. They didn't have a breakthrough year. They didn't do anything that would make a great headline. They just didn't stop. The savings rate stayed consistent. The portfolio stayed boring. The investable assets kept growing while the house stayed a place to live, not a retirement plan. And one day they looked up and realized they were somewhere most people never get. If you've felt behind while doing the right things, I want you to know that feeling is common, and it's often wrong. Leave me a comment below. Tell me which of these three signs sounded most like your life. Or tell me what quiet financial habit you're glad you kept going. I read them, and you might find that a lot of other people are exactly where you are. If this video was useful, subscribe. Not for me, because the next video covers something that builds directly on this. We're going to look at how much you actually need to retire, not the number financial media throws around, but the real math for a real middle-class retirement. What the calculation actually looks like, what most people get wrong about it. If you watched this far and it resonated, that one is worth watching next.